Hello and welcome to Come to the Table. My name is Jesse, and today I want to talk about some games in my collection that I feel are overlooked or undervalued. These can be games that maybe they didn't get as much hype when they came out, they didn't get as much press, or maybe they were looked at as overpriced compared to other games, or maybe they're considered more of a niche game. Anyway, I hope you find a few of these that spark your interest. And my criteria for picking these is, first off, I must currently own the game. Secondly, the game has to be rated lower than 1,000 on the Board Game Geek website, the BGG website. And thirdly, it has to be a game where if somebody were to pull this off the shelf and say, hey, let's play this one, I'd be excited to play it. Yes, let's play this one. I put this list in order from the highest ranked game on BGG to the lowest, and of course all BGG rankings are as of the date of this video. So let's get on to the list. In Fayum, players take on the role of advisors to the Pharaoh of Egypt, who has ordered his advisors to develop the region for harvesting goods, building roads, founding settlements, and clearing the swamp of crocodiles. Players manage a hand of cards and purchase ever-increasingly powerful cards from the card market, so timing is crucial to buy the best cards. Everything on the board belongs to the Pharaoh, so players can capitalize on pieces played by their opponents. The order that cards are played from your hand is also important because when retrieving cards from your discard pile, they are taken in the reverse order they were played, and taking back extra cards costs you precious money. Points are scored immediately in the form of reputation, with no endgame scoring. After the 4 natural disasters near the bottom of the deck are revealed, players can no longer reset their hands, and when everyone has passed, the game ends. So Fayum is one of the newer games in my collection. I picked this up a while ago and we've played it several times, and I've really been enjoying this. I saw it quite a while ago and it seemed to be really hard to find for a while, but I think it's been easier to pick up lately. I really like the hand management / deck building that this game has, where the order that you play the cards matters a lot and you only get to pick up so many cards whenever you reset your hand unless you pay a bunch of money. I like the theme. The artwork is kind of meh. That's kind of where my wife doesn't like it that much because the artwork isn't the greatest, but I think it fits the tone of the game. I think it fits the setting of the game. I also really like how the Pharaoh controls everything. The Pharaoh owns everything, and so things that other people play onto the board can benefit you a lot more than it benefits them. So there's a lot of depth of strategy that way. So yeah, I think we're going to play this game a lot more. The Hare and the Tortoise is a hand management racing game that throws a twist on the original fable. This race is between the hare, the tortoise, the wolf, the fox, and the sheep. At the start of each race, each player is randomly given an animal that they are rooting for to win. And after each player receives their initial hand of cards, they can choose one of those cards in secret to also root for to win, which can be the same animal if they choose. Players then take turns playing cards to determine which of the animals moves each round. Each animal has its own unique movement rules that players can use to their advantage to try to get their animal across the finish line first. This game is great for kids, but has enough strategy to also make it a great game for adults. So The Hare and the Tortoise was actually one of the first games that I bought when I got into modern board games. It was kind of in the first initial round of board games I bought. And I really bought it because I thought it would be something that I could enjoy with my kids. And we really enjoy playing it with the kids, but I found that a lot of adults enjoy this too. So when I bring this to my game group, especially with people that haven't played a lot of modern board games, this is fairly easy to pick up. and we just end up playing it over and over again. I like the fact that you can either go for two different animals, or you can kind of put all your chips in the pot on one specific animal and try to get points that way, which it makes it a lot more difficult, but it's, the nice risk reward there. So like I said, I really think it's a great game to play with your kids, but it's definitely got enough strategy and enough depth that you can have adults enjoy it. Far Shore is a worker placement tableau building game set in the Everdell universe. It is very similar to Everdell in design and play style, with a few different rules and mechanisms added to give it a nautical theme. Players place their animal workers around the island to gather resources and use them to play cards into their city, activating various effects on the cards, moving their boat to score points, collecting treasures that can be used for resources or saved until the end of the game for points, and claiming maps based on the cards in their city. After progressing through all of the 4 seasons, points are tallied. I like a lot of the things that Far Shore brings to the Everdell universe. There's a lot of different mechanics that I like in this game that maybe aren't included in Everdell, and some of them I think could even be house ruled into Everdell. Things such as when you have duplicate cards in the meadow, they stack on top of each other, so that gives the meadow a little bit more variety. I also like the alternate ways to score, like the boat, how that can be a whole strategy is to see how far you can get the boat to score extra points. I like the treasures, how you can either hoard them for 2 points apiece at the end of the game, or if you need to, you can ditch them for any resource of your choice. I think that adds a nice layer of strategy in. I like the maps. They add a little bit more variety as far as because the special events in Everdell, a lot of the times you have to have specific cards, where the maps you just have to have specific color cards. So I do like a lot of the things that Far Shore is doing, and I think what originally turned people off to this game was probably the price point. It's pretty high for what you get in the box, but I think if you can find this at a reasonable price, and if you're an Everdell fan, I do think this is a great pickup. Jerusalem Anno Domini is a game for 1 to 4 players, where players are followers of Jesus of Nazareth and want to attend the Last Supper and sit as close to Jesus and the apostles as they can. Players play 1 card per turn, with each card having multiple actions, such as collecting resources, listening to parables, doing favors for other players, assigning followers to different locations, or finding seats at the Last Supper. Each card is then placed into one of 3 different rows, and if a player places cards down in a specific order, they can call an apostle to the Last Supper, gaining bonuses and positioning their followers to score the most points. Some actions cause the Sanhedrin to pay more and more attention to the proceedings, and when the Sanhedrin marker hits the top of the track, Jesus is brought to Calvary, which triggers the end of the game. Ever since I got into this modern board game world, I've really looked hard for a Christian-themed game that is good. That's not just kind of a reskin of another game or a trivia game or something like that. So when I saw this game and I saw the mechanics and I saw how it played, I knew I had to get it. And it's something that I take to my game group, and we really enjoy it. We like the mechanics of trying to get your followers to the Last Supper and trying to sit as close to Jesus and the apostles as possible, and the fact that you can do favors for other players, you can listen to parables. The only thing about this game is it's not really... It's really a medium weight game. It's definitely not one that I would bring for people who don't really play modern board games, because it's kind of on the heavier side, especially for people who I've just introduced to introductory games. But still, I have enough friends that enjoy kind of a heavier style of board games where you bring this out and we really enjoy it. Steampunk Rally Fusion is a racing game for 1 to 8 players and is the standalone expansion to the original Steampunk Rally. In this game, you take on the role of historical inventors that have been invited to take part in a race where you build a contraption from scratch using cards that you draft each round, and then utilize dice placement to move your contraption along the track. This version also adds the fusion dice, which can roll numbers from 4 to 9, supercharging your turns with the drawback of these dice being fused to the contraption and being unable to be removed without losing the part that they are fused to. This version also adds 2 new tracks, secret projects that give each player a one-time boost, and gear up and overcharge abilities that add a whole new layer of strategy to an already entertaining game. The Steampunk Rally is in my top 10 favorite games, so of course when they come out with a new version, I have to pick it up. And I like this game better than the original Steampunk Rally. I like the new maps and the new abilities that the maps add, where you have spaces that have random events. I like the new one-time abilities that each player gets that they have to burn dice to get up to. I like the fusion dice, how you can get these big turns with these big numbers on your dice, but then that dice is just stuck there until that part falls off. I think that it adds to the original game in a lot of very positive ways that make the game a lot more interesting. Big City is a city building game for 2 to 4 players that features large, three-dimensional building components. Players manage a hand of cards that represent spaces on the board where buildings can be placed, and points are scored depending on the type and the size of building being played, where it is placed, and what it is placed next to. Players can also take actions to expand the city by placing more neighborhoods, expanding the streetcar line to set up big point turns, and playing parks and factories to add bonuses to buildings played afterward or to block spaces from your opponents. This game looks amazing on the table and has enough deep decisions to make the game very enjoyable to play. So I really enjoy games that have a good table presence. I like when people can walk up to the table and just be like, wow, that's really cool looking. So I wouldn't say this was like a no-brainer for me, but I mean, look at the size of these buildings when you're putting them on the board. So once you get done constructing your city, it looks awesome. So the game also it's got a lot of strategy to it, where certain buildings need to be next to certain other buildings in order to play them and score lots of points. So the strategy aspect's pretty neat too, and the whole redistribution of cards, where you're kind of forced to trade cards with other people every turn. So it's hard to hold on to specific cards. I think that adds a nice layer to the game. But really, this game to me is just about building this big city with all these big chunky buildings, and it just looks amazing on the table. Funfair is a card-driven game for 2 to 4 players where you compete to build the best theme park. Players build attractions such as thrill rides, theaters, food outlets, and leisure rides, and then play as many upgrades on each attraction as they can to score the most points. Points are also scored by hiring staff members, completing blueprints, and making money from their park. Players have 6 rounds to maximize their park score with only 3 actions per round. But players can increase their number of actions to 4 per round by playing their super attraction. At the beginning of each round, an event is triggered which benefits all players. This game has a colorful design and is a fast, super friendly game to play. So Funfair is actually kind of a re-skinning, a re-implementation of the game Unfair, which came out quite a few years ago. In Unfair, you're still building a theme park, except that there's a lot of take that mechanics. There's a lot of negative player interaction to where you're closing people's rides, you're taking their money away. So that's a big strategy of the game, is what can you do to the other players to slow them down. So in Funfair, they've taken that mostly the same game and taken out a lot of all of the negative player interaction, which I think is more fun. Um, I really I like how colorful the game is. I like how you can build your attractions and see what kind of bonuses you can add. And I like the little roller coaster mini that you use for the round counter. And I just think there's a really nice family game, and it actually plays pretty quickly. So yeah, pick this one up. Maple Valley is a hand and resource management game for 1 to 5 players that is a follow-up game to Creature Comforts, which I also really enjoy. In Maple Valley, you are animal friends that are getting ready for the annual Spring Festival by foraging for resources and curiosities, making food and crafts to bring to the festival, and recruiting more friends to help you along the way, which gives you more actions each round. Over the course of 5 rounds, players play friends from their hand to travel along a path associated with that friend, choosing where to stop along that path to perform all of the actions on that space. The player can then craft any cards in their hand that they have resources for and assign them to the festivities that are planned. At the end of the 5th round, the festival begins and players add up their score. Creature Comforts is one of my wife's favorite games, and I really enjoy it too, mostly because it shares a lot of mechanics with Everdell. So when we found out they were coming out with another game in the Creature Comforts universe, we had to go pick it up. And we've really enjoyed this game so far. We like a lot of the mechanics it adds to the game, where you can play friends to move along certain paths, and you're getting ready for this festival. It's super cute. It's got nice artwork. It's got nice big chunky bits. And it's a game we can play with our kids, which is always a bonus. Flourish is a card drafting, garden building game for 1 to 7 players, in which players choose from cards such as flowers, trees, parks, and fountains to add to their garden to collect the most points. Players choose 3 cards per round over 4 rounds, with some cards only scoring at the end of the round they're played, others scoring only at the end of the game, and some cards that have both end of round and end of game scoring. This game is quick and has an interesting drafting system where you pass a card to the opponents on both your left and right hand sides every turn. Extra modules include the Follies expansion, which adds buildings that score for icons on cards they're played on, as well as cards that are adjacent, and the Friends expansion, which score for the amount of specific icons in your garden at the end of the game. So Everdell is my favorite game, and when I saw that the maker of Everdell, James Wilson, was coming out with another game, I had to Kickstarter it. So Flourish, I love drafting games. My wife loves drafting games, so this was right up our alley. And the whole kind of table presence where you have the little walls that go in between each player so that separates what cards you're giving each player, and these big chunky scoring pads that are just kind of over the top as far as production value goes. I just think this is a gorgeous game. The card art's amazing. The way that you're putting the cards into rows to make your little garden, and you're putting the little buildings on top of them, and the little animal friends that you have that can score you points. I just think this is a beautiful game. And honestly, I almost prefer playing this solo over playing with a bunch of people. I just think that the solo version of this game, it adds this whole new level, this whole new layer of strategy to it, where you know that every single card that you have is either going to be played into your garden or your opponent's. And so there's these agonizing decisions over, I don't want to play this into my garden, but if I play this into my opponent's garden, it's going to benefit them too much. So I really like the solo mode of this game, but the multiplayer one's great too. And the fact that it plays up to 7 is just kind of icing on the cake. Untitled Blades Banner Festival is a trick-taking game for 2 to 5 players set in the Title Blades universe. This game offers a twist on the trick-taking system by awarding different actions to the players depending on whether they play the highest, lowest, or middle-ranked cards in the trick. The highest-ranked cards move their speedboat around the center ring, scoring points for every lap they complete. The lowest-ranked card gets to activate the action listed on the bottom of the card, and the middle-ranked cards place their discs along the docks, trying to get a majority in each area to score points at the end of each of the 3 rounds of play. Players need to manage their hand and think ahead because the ranking of which color of cards is highest and lowest can change between turns. This is one of the more interesting trick-taking games I've come across. My family really loves the original Title Blades game. As you can see, we have it right over here on our shelf. So when Banner Festival came out, we picked that up, and we really enjoy the trick-taking mechanism in this game, where it doesn't matter if you're picking the highest card, if you're picking the lowest card, if you're picking a card in the middle, everybody gets some sort of bonus. And a lot of the times, picking the highest card isn't actually the best way to go. So I really like how you can plan ahead, because the highest, what card is considered the highest and what's the lowest can change every round. So you can really plan ahead and say, I want to play this card as the highest card later. I want to play this card as the lowest card later. So it does have a ton of depth to it. And I like how it's really colorful, and I really like the price point on it too. This game is actually relatively inexpensive. So if you're looking for a nice change to a trick-taking game that's family friendly, go ahead and pick this up. Well, I hope you enjoyed my list, and maybe you want to try out a few of these games. So as always, please like, share, and subscribe if you like this type of content, and I'll see you next time.